So, a couple details about this number, right? Because there's some confusion out there. You know, I think we spoke to this a little bit yesterday. There was documentation that came out from the actual Superman film in its filings with the state of Ohio. So, the Superman filmed a lot in Cleveland. It's actually funny. I've told you guys this before, but it's kind of cool. When I went to see Theory in Cleveland, he was actually staying at the hotel in the what they call the arcade. That's that place where in the Superman trailer, you see Superman and Lois kind of floating in the air as they embrace each other, and it's that like big open ceiling golden building. I was literally there. That's where I met Theory for the first time in real person. Kind of wild. But they filmed a lot in Cleveland, which I thought was cool. You know what I mean? Like, credit where credit's due. That's cool. That's the city where those two Jewish boys created Superman. You know, I think Cleveland represents blue-collar Midwest town. That's a very Superman thing. That's, you know, where he comes from in a sense. You know, Kansas and Ohio, pretty similar, actually. So I thought that was all cool. However, according to the filings there, the reported budget, or rather what they're spending on the movie, is something like $376 million, man. Like, that's in official documents. $376 million. Okay, now, here's the thing. A lot of these movies get, like, tax credits, and so that cost is not the actual reported cost of the film. So they do kind of shenanigans to make the budget seem either bigger or smaller, depends on the needs of the studio at the time. So a lot of people were questioning this. I'm going to be completely honest with you. Like, I think they probably spent way more than $225 million. I think that is true. I think they spent more than that money, literally. Okay? But just like with Brave New World, just like with Thunderbolts, just like with the Marvels, all of these other things, there is a way to do the accounting for these things that will make it so as an entity on the actual balance sheet, the production cost the studio a sort of net cost of what is reported. So this 225 number is real. Like, we have to accept that number as real. That is what the studio is putting forward. But I also think it's fair. Like, here's the thing. Like, within that same breath, I would say it's absolutely fair to look at that with the side eye, man. Like, a lot of us did the same thing for Brave New World. Like, look, we don't know for sure. A lot of this is like rumor, speculation, secondhand information. But, dude, we heard so much about Captain America Brave New World, bro. Like, we heard so much, so many shoots, so much done. And, you know, that VFX work had to be expensive. So, I don't know. A lot of us just looked at the number for Brave New World and we were like, yeah, I don't know if I buy it. And that's the same thing with even Thunderbolts, potentially, because they tried to say that Thunderbolts had a budget of like $180 million. And that doesn't include marketing. And so it's like, it's weird, man. It's I think what I'm trying to say here, and maybe I'm stumbling a little bit on my words, is like, all right, Warner Brothers, you know what I mean? Like, all right, Hollywood, like, I'll take you at this 225 number. But I think we know the reality is it's actually larger than that. But if that's the mark, if that's what you're saying, and if that's what's going to be on the balance sheet, fair play to you. That's what the goal is. And so according to the Wrap, with that budget, you would need to get to $700 million worldwide at a threshold to basically break even, is what they're not really saying here. Is that you would essentially have to hit that number to break even. Because remember, the number is 2.5. You need to get 2.5 times your budget back to break even. And then everything from that moment is profit at that point. Okay? And so, $700 million. That's the mark. That's what they need to get. 66% of chat, by the way, is saying yes. 66% of chat is saying, yes, it will hit that $700 million mark. So here's what I'll say about this. I actually agree. I think it will hit $700 million. Now, as of the moment of doing this segment with you right here, we do not have ticket sales. Like, the thing has not gone on sale to get tickets. all the data we have on this is we have some bit of the social media impression, meaning whenever they drop a spot, what does it do on trending? How do people respond? And of course, the very first Superman trailer was a monumental success in that regard. It had a massive imprint on social media. I think they said 250 million plus views across all platforms or whatever. That's what Warner Brothers said. And that's huge. Like, there's no way around it. That is absolutely huge. I have seen some analytics. There's a company called Quorum, I believe is the name of the company. And I do follow some of the analytic tracking that they have. And strangely, they've had, they've basically consistently had Superman at a place where how many people know about it, like its impression as far as who knows about it, is massive, way bigger than Fantastic Four. And interest in it, according to Quorum, has also been much higher than Fantastic Four. Now, I will say something interesting has happened in the Quorum data. Take all of this with a grain of salt because, you know, I like the data. I like these analytics companies. Like, I like following Luminant, you know, Parrot Analytics, you know, Nielsen, of course. Like, I'm interested in all this stuff. But whenever a new kind of, you know, thing takes the stand, like Quorum's just a little new. I don't know how they're actually putting this data together. Okay, but having said that, it's maybe some of the only data we have out there. There has been something interesting in the Quorum data which showed a sort of dip and a begin to decline, actually, which is kind of interesting. This would be around the time of the second trailer, which I don't know. I mean, I don't know exactly what to make of that. It's not massive, but it was enough of a trajectory to get people to notice. Some people brought it up to my attention. And I was like, dang, like, I wonder what that is. You know, it could be general fatigue. I mean, it could literally be the discourse around comic book stuff. I mean, it could be some of the leaks and the rumors that came out. It could be some of the marketing was having an adverse effect, actually. You never know. There could be a lot of different things going on there. But even with that dip in interest, Superman has consistently, according to Quorum, held a pretty crazy spot in the zeitgeist, meaning like everybody's aware of it. A lot of people going to see this movie. So I think this movie has the potential. I think it will absolutely hit this $700 million mark. It has a chance, in my opinion, to do much better than even that, actually. And the next big indicators of data, of course, will be when the tickets actually go on sale. Is there other marketing for this thing? Do you get more buzz from like critics, fans, or whatever? There's apparently an Amazon Prime screening of sorts, which is happening within, I think, the next couple of weeks. Let me check if I have the info on this. Somebody probably tagged me with it. I thought somebody DM'd me about it, but I definitely know somebody tagged me. So there's apparently some kind of a thing where some fans are going to be able to see it. So you've got that to potentially create some buzz. I think the film opens early in some foreign markets. July 7th. Interesting. Okay. So I believe in Japan it opens a couple of days early, in some other markets as well. So you'll have a lot of the people that are going to be looking on social media. They will have a lot to sort of inform them and try to form an opinion. And then, of course, you'll have the early social media reactions and you'll have the Rotten Tomato scores. I think the Rotten Tomato scores for Superman are unfortunately going to be pretty important. Marvel and DC are kind of in different places, right? But one thing that's kind of happening to both of them is this sort of apathy, right? We call it comic book movie fatigue or whatever, but it's really just like an apathetic response to a lot of the audience. And so this guy that tweeted this thing, you know, he has an interesting point here. It's going to be really interesting to see if Superman's iconography as a character overpowers the general audience's total apathy towards DC films. And I know it's kind of an uncomfortable thing to talk about, but if you look at the last year or two, or even 3, hell, even really 10, if you really want to talk about it, of the performance of DC movies, I mean, it's been a steady decline with a few blips here and there, like Joker and Aquaman. But yeah, it's just not in a great spot. And you know, Gunn certainly has his fans, and Gunn has some really passionate fans. You know what I mean? Some fans that just absolutely love his stuff. But I mean, you look at those Peacemaker numbers, you look at the Suicide Squad numbers, like I'm sorry, there is not a lot of data to support that his hardcore base translates into large viewership or large box office, right? So it is going to be fascinating to see how they sort of round the bend here of the marketing and of the push to get this movie out there. And I think because there's so much apathy for the genre, I think it needs really good Rotten Tomato scores. But you know what I'm kind of feeling a little bit personally here is like, do you guys remember, it must have been 5 weeks ago now. Do you remember when we looked at the reviews, the Rotten Tomato scores for Thunderbolts? If you'll recall, there was this pattern emerging as we were talking about those numbers, right? And one of the things we noticed of the patterns was like, a lot of the critics, even the ones that were being positive on it, were either saying like, oh, it's a really nice movie about depression, or like it's a nice character study, or like, like all of these different things. And I remember saying to you guys as we were going through that, I remember being like, dude, I don't know if these are really doing the movie a favor, because the general audience, I don't think, is as interested in a bunch of B and C level characters, talking about their feelings and shit. I don't think that's really what's going to sell. And, lucky for Superman, like, while it might deal with some serious issues, this, that, second, and the third, the movie seems to nail spectacle, which is like, you got to respect it. You got to respect Gunn's ability to put on visual spectacle. It's incredible in the Guardians movies. It's even really good in Suicide Squad. I don't really like it, but like the spectacle is great. So you look at the second Superman trailer, you look at Superman overall, I mean, it's got that going for him. He's fighting kaiju monsters, he's fighting Kryptonian clones, he's fighting the Justice Gang. Like, dude, Superman's going to be definitely throwing some hands. And we even know that he gets his ass beat at some point. So he's going to be, he's going to be taking some blows and getting hit. I think that speaks so much more to the audiences these days than like, this movie's a great character study about depressed characters. I love how the depression brings the whole cast together. I got to be honest, I think that's part of the problem with Thunderbolts. Like, people were like, oh, a small little Marvel movie about depression and like character study? Like, no thanks. Like, I will literally wait for streaming on that. Spectacle is what is selling. Experience is what is selling. And so when I say, the point I'm trying to make here is, if they have strong Rotten Tomato scores, but beyond just strong scores, if the critic reception is like, this is a good ass time, man, you're gonna want to see this shit. This dude, Superman flying around doing crazy shit, is awesome. If you're a fan of cinema, because Gunn had talked about tapping into the Top Gun Maverick energy, and you can kind of see that in some of the flying scenes, man. Like, he's going for it in spectacle. So I think that the Rotten Tomato scores will be important, but not even so much just the score, the context of the film. People want an experience, they want to have a good time, and I think they're going to do that. I think that's super important to the formula here, and so I think it'll absolutely work. So my prediction here is that it will crush this 700 million number. I think it gets to 8, 9, maybe even $1 billion. And if I'm being completely honest with you, man, when I made that bet with Brandon Davis, it must have been early this year or late last year, okay? And the bet was, I bet him that I thought Fantastic Four would make more money than Superman. We put $500 on it. It's the total box office gross for its complete theatrical run, so we won't know technically until it's all over. When I made that bet, dude, I was feeling a lot better about this shit. I thought, Marvel was still Marvel. RDJ Doom is like a ace up the sleeve. Chris Evans is an ace up the sleeve. Like, bro, they're cooking. They have crazy stuff. And I was like, it's the Fantastic Four. It's Marvel. Like, get out of here, man. Franklin Richards, Galactus, get the fuck out of here, okay? But that was before 2 Marvel movies lost money in a row. And Daredevil Born Again couldn't chart one time on Nielsen. And those numbers were low, bro. Like, those Mobland numbers were great for Mobland, but they were low overall. So now, in the present, I'm actually pretty fucking worried, if I'm being honest. I'm pretty worried that Superman will beat Fantastic Four. Now, ultimately, like, it's not the end of the world. And obviously, like, a Lannister pays his debts, and I would pay my debt, of course. But it's like, I'm hoping that the Superman movie can be really fun and that I can enjoy it and it can be a big success and a hit. And it won't really feel too bad at that point unless Fantastic Four gets fucking crushed. Okay, so if Superman makes like 1.3 and Fantastic Four makes like 4, oh my God, that's embarrassing, dude. That would be crazy embarrassing. I don't exactly predict that. I actually think both movies will probably end up performing similar, and it might be pretty close. But I think where we're at right now is so different than where we were at 5 months ago. I think Superman is going to be a big smash hit. I think it's going to do well, and I think it'll get close to $1 billion, if not get past it. However, here's another thing I want to say about this, okay? Superman does not even need to hit this $700 million. I know that sounds crazy, okay? And some people, like especially the Snyder fans or whatever, they're going to be super mad that I said that. But I actually agree with that. I believe that. I think if Superman even just gets close to 6, DC should greenlight more stuff, and they should continue on with gun stuff for multiple reasons. Number one, this would be one of the biggest box office for a DC movie ever. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, we just got to be real. The DC stuff has never been consistently as strong as the Marvel stuff in the box office. That would be huge for that film. And I believe it would be bigger. It would be about where Iron Man 1 was at, actually, when it was all said and done, which, of course, was a movie so successful it launched an entire franchise of films, okay? And I think given the climate in Hollywood right now, you know, the theater experience, maybe the fatigue of comic book movies, I think even if this movie loses some money, but shows that there's strength in that brand and that this vision is something that people are responding to. And there's other things you can look at. You know, if we just had this whole conversation about, you know, Thunderbolts and how there's a lot of caveats there, I still think it's embarrassing, and you lose $100 million on it. It sucks. But Marvel is strong enough, and I think they understand, Marvel Studios and Disney understands, that Marvel itself is valuable beyond the box office. We talked a lot about this yesterday. What these companies are looking for is more than just big box office. I think directors and Hollywood people are absolutely still hyper-fixated on that. But I think the big businesses and the big executives understand that the strength of the IP is really important. So, like, if you think about where Mission Impossible Fallout or whatever, Final Reckoning, whatever the newest one, if you look at the numbers for that, dude, that movie's going to lose money in theaters. In fact, it might have been the case that there was no path forward for that movie to actually make money in the theater. So it's almost like they're willing to take a hit to create the moment for the franchise, because the franchise then becomes so much more valuable in a potential acquisition or whatever, right? Unfortunately, Warner Brothers is there. Like, they're at that spot, brother, where, like, they need to show that this thing has some life in it. And I think given everything that's going on, even if it just barely gets to 6, we're probably good. Now, on the other hand, if this thing only gets to 4, I mean, the whole thing might be cooked. Do you know what I mean? If this thing only gets to 4, that would be kind of tragic. And I would say DC Studios and Warner Bros. Would be left with kind of 2 options. They either need to figure out a way to drastically reduce the budgets of these things, which I think all of Hollywood is going to start doing, and that will happen on the back of AI. And I know some people will be butthurt about that, but ironically, there's just no way forward for the industry. You know, they have to take those budgets down a considerable amount, and I think AI is the only option for that. So that will happen, and they will probably need to do that. But we're about to talk about Clayface. We're about to talk about, you know, potentially a Constantine too. I think you might find a scenario where the studios are looking for unique characters that have a big draw that don't necessarily need the massive budget to create a movie around them. So, like, you think about Constantine versus the Hulk. It's a great example. Constantine, yeah, there's definitely going to be some demon shit. There's going to be some exorcism. But Constantine kind of lives and breathes off of Keanu Reeves just being like a stylistic badass and saying some hard as nails lines and, like, you know, exorcising some demons, okay? That movie does not need a shit ton of money to do what it does well. However, a Hulk movie needs it. By necessity, you would need to have a ton of money for the visual effects for Hulk. You would need to have him fighting and doing something big scale. You need an enemy or a villain or an antagonist that could stand up to Hulk for the sake of drama. That has its cost. So you might see this thing where the studios start to target characters that are a little bit smaller in what their budget would require for a film, but have enough interest to, hopefully get a bunch of people to go check it out in the theaters. So with all of that being said, if I were Warner Brothers, looking ahead at this Superman thing, and of course they're going to be following along, looking at all the data, we're going to look at it all as well, and I'll try to report it to you as we get more info. A really big opening and then having legs for several weeks, and then it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Fantastic Four after 2 weeks of box office. How much will Superman get hurt by Fantastic Four? We're going to find out. But I think they can easily get to this $700 million. But I think even if they get close to six, I think Warner Brothers can consider that a success, and they can move forward. And I would greenlight more projects. Right now, they have Supergirl and Lanterns that they're making, and there's a ton of stuff they're looking at in the future, including this Clayface movie, which I think is stupid as fuck. But yeah, I think at that point they would be able to make more moves. So that is my take on it, guys. As I look at the poll here, 64% of people agree that it will hit that $700 million mark. We have the budget numbers. We're going to see. We're going to find out. We're going to find out, and we're going to find out together. Thanks for watching. And if you like this clip, smash a like on the actual video and subscribe to this channel. That way more of these clips get into your feed. I've also linked the full episode below if you want to check out the entire thing, including the Q&A we do with fans. You can also watch this show live. We do it live Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And you can also find all of my content, including the videos I put on my main YouTube channel, on the podcast feed.